It was not built until almost the time the mines were ready to peter out. There wasn't. They had the county seat was moved here early. Ione had it for about 2 years, 3 years, and the mines went down there. They didn't prove up to be much. So this was the next largest town of any size, and the mines had seemed to have some depth, so they moved the county seat over here, and they just spread the offices around town. Different the building down there with the brick facade on the front. It was originally been a bank, but later on they used it as a courtroom and a jail cell. Down they used the vaults as a jail cell down below, and they'd had a couple of people escape there, and they had to hang them and do a few other things. Vigilantes got a hold on them, so they decided that they needed a structure that they could put everybody, all the offices together. And what they did is they put it out to bid, and they had 7 architects put in plans for it. The one that won was a man by the name of Winchell out of Carson City. He got paid the grand sum of $350 for his plans.
What year was that?
It was in 1870, probably 1874 when the plans were accepted.
A lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money. But he also figured he probably had to spend about 100 of it to come down and sell it to the county commissioners and, you know, do a little supervision, this type of thing, just with the transportation and costs that were involved. But still didn't do bad. They let the bid. It was an Italianate style of architecture. They let the bid out on it, and they got a bid of $22,000 to build it. They made the brick on site. While they were laying the foundation, they made the brick on site, and they also made their own cement. There was a limestone deposit over there. So they had 2 kilns going right here that they were making the brick in. By the time they got the foundation done, the first kiln, the brick was ready, and they started laying brick that fall. The wood came from the Sierras, so they had to bring it from on the Union Pacific to Palisades in the northern part of the state. That was standard gauge. At that point, they had to unload it and reload it onto the narrow gauge Eureka Palisades Railroad, brought it down to Eureka. At Eureka, they had to unload it again, put it on wagons, and bring it here. That winter, some of the teams got sick. They couldn't get all the wood they needed down here in time, so the county commissioners did give them a little extension. They were supposed to do it in a year, and they got a little extension. They finished it. It was accepted by the county commissioners in late July, but it was basically complete by the 4th of July, 1876. So they held a centennial celebration in here, up in the courtroom for at that particular time.
And hang anybody that day?
No, they only had one official hanging here, and that was up at the bed and breakfast up there. That is one of the places they used as one of the jails earlier, and they did supposedly have one hanging there. Then the state took over capital punishment, so any others other than the illegal hangings, you know, vigilante hangings, the state took care of all of that after that point. So there were no hangings here at this courthouse. Or any other capital punishment.
Excuse me, now all the work about bringing in the wood and everything was just for this courthouse?
Yes,
only?
it was just for the courthouse. They, on the $22,000 bid, the county let out bonds, they sold $1,000 bonds as they needed them, as they needed the money, and it was in a 1.25% per month interest. So it was about 15% a year on the bonds. So they didn't have any problems selling the bonds. And getting the money, and then eventually they paid it off and it went there. As you come into the courthouse now, this office over here, this was the sheriff's office, and later on, when the county seat was moved from here to Tonopah, what they did is they put a watchman in here, and a watchman lived in these next 3 rooms, which I'll take you through in a minute. And he used the sheriff's office as his kitchen so that the smells didn't get into his living quarters. Plus, on a summer day when it might get hot using the old wood stoves, he didn't have to worry about heating up the rest of the house. So with the high ceilings, the double hung windows, the transoms over the doors, the cupola at the top, which they could open up and allow the heat to rise. It had a pretty good air conditioning system. Even on a summer day, a hot summer day, it'll get a little warm up in the attic. The second floor is not too, it'll be warm but not really uncomfortable. This floor is almost always pleasant as far as even on the warmest of days. So it's not bad. Come on in.
They're part of our group.
They use this as a kitchen, and then when I was a boy growing up, the local rancher down here used it as a place to store his hay. He'd back his pickup up to the window there, and throw his hay, baled hay. It was when they still had the small bales where you could still handle them. Throw them in the window, and he'd store them in there until he needed them that winter, and then he'd come up and take them out one at a time out of there. We'll go inside here, and I'll just show you. Of course, I discourage, no one is supposed to be writing on the wall, so don't. Even though it looks like everybody does, yeah, do not. One of the interesting names in here is a Corporal John Alls, 9/25/43. Probably, the best we can tell, he was probably stationed out at the old Army Air Base during the Second World War, and he was probably one of the Army Air Corps. There's, again, if any of you are from this area, you'll see names probably of people, the whole families that were in this area. The Warren family, there's the Nichols family was from this area. There's a number, and again, if you're from northern Nevada, there's Don Byington up there. His brother was a principal up there. There's Chester Green, first year I taught. When I student taught, I taught in his school. At the time his name was put in here, he was the principal over in Manhattan, and he brought a class over here for a Nevada history trip. And I think most of his students did the writing. He's in here, and he's also in a room upstairs. In later years, I happened to have his son in one of my classes, and then he became a teacher later on. And every once in a while, I see him in Reno. I tell him his dad's got a little graffiti on the wall down there. If you knew Chester Green, he was very straight and narrow, and would never have wanted to have it known that his name was on the walls at this day and age. But at that time, I'm sure that it was an abandoned building. They came in for the Nevada history class, and we went from there. There's a couple of the names I'll show you when we get upstairs. We'll go through here, go into the clerk's office. Then we'll go into the recorder's office, and then back in the treasury. We'll be on that side of the building.